Good morning, the 17th of January. Craig here. It's the first day of phase 3 of my outline planning, and it felt really good. It felt like how I was hoping it would, that it would reveal little plot considerations that I hadn't thought about, and would maybe reconfirm some of the momentum building up across different parts of the story. I didn't quite know how I was going to do it. It's a very open plan sort of phase, this, in terms of just working out the logical connections across the book, seeing what makes sense, what doesn't. The right plot trajectories are in place for each character. They're moving at the right movement and the right momentum. So all that sort of is what I'm going for over the next fortnight. But I didn't know what I'd do in that respect. So what I started with, and what's proved to be a really good starting point, is I've just made a document that it's got a table in it with 3 columns. The first column is a chapter, the second column is act, and the third column is momentum. And so I've got my 6 chapters down in the columns, as the rows there, and then I have I write out a summary of what happens in each act. So I've just done chapter 1 to start with. So I've got act 1, and then I just have a little 4-line description of what happens in act 1. Very basic, but then where I expand and really go into the consequences of that action is in the momentum column. I've called it momentum because I had an idea of, I was going to call it value, in terms of just saying, why is this here? Why is anybody reading this? How does it connect to the bigger book? I thought if I start with that, just to make sure that everything is purposeful, then and if I can justify why it's purposeful, I can say, well, we need to have this particular act in this chapter to find out more about such and such, and then based on knowing that, that leads us to understand why things have to happen in this particular way. So just making sure that everything is of value and not just pretty background aesthetics or a funny scene that seems like it could be there but doesn't need to be there. So that's how it started, and it actually got to a point where I was finding out things that I had missed in terms of why particular motivations that the characters had. One in particular is huge and is going to have to be something that is fed back into the novel at different points, because it's all about why one of the 2 protagonists wants to even go on the particular journey that happens in the book. There's a lot of mystery at play in terms of motivations and why they're doing certain things anyway, and that's part of the flavour of the book, and it's part of what keeps you wanting to learn more about it as the book goes on. But I'd never made time to address this very basic antecedent of why is this important at all to one of the key protagonists. And once I realised that I had never addressed that, and that addressing that would give us the understanding that we need to think, all right, this is why they're on that journey, I'm on the journey too, because that's a good enough reason. I need to have that in place. So that was excellent. That's exactly what I was hoping this phase would do, to bring out those spots where things hadn't been addressed. So this is what I'm doing. I got through, like I said, chapter 1. I think it's fair to spend a chapter a day. It's not something that should be rushed, because things like that need time to think about, and I don't have good answers at the moment for them. I will before I'm finished this particular phase, but they are questions that I'm raising as I'm writing and going through the chapters, and I will give them the answers that they need before we move on to our scene slicing in phase 4. So all's good. Like I said, chapter 1 finished. I'm going to go into chapter 2 tomorrow and continue summarising the action so I can see it all on the single page table, and also get a sense of the motivations and the momentums and the reason why all these things are happening and why the reader's coming along for the ride. So that's it. I feel like just as a final thing I should note, and I know I attached an image in the blog post yesterday, that in the morning at about 9 o'clock I got a message. No, I didn't get a message. Actually, I saw it randomly on Instagram. I just checked something briefly, and I saw on the Instagram account of Jung Gi, who it's just crazy that when I first started these series of videos, I had a pile of books here, and I remember holding some up and sort of showing what was motivating me, and they were the sketches of Kim Jung Gi. And something I didn't note back then was, just after I'd started the novel, probably a week afterwards, I saw a little offer to maybe get a work commissioned by him, and I just couldn't believe it. So I jumped in and inquired about it and put my idea forward, which was to have drawn the two protagonists from the novel, which at that point was like a week old. But I had a good enough idea of who they both were and what they were going to do. And so 3 weeks later, just miraculously, he drew that picture. He went from South Korea to Los Angeles for a Los Angeles art show, and while he's over there, he drew it, and they filmed him illustrating it. It's just a mind-blowing composition, that he can visualize that and draw it in that fashion. But also just the fact that he took a description that I'd given, which I mean it's a description that I had in mind. I knew how the characters looked. I wrote down my best version of that, but I felt, things get lost in translation, and it could have been like talking into the sort of automated phone system, and they say, what would you like? And you say, I'd like to talk about a home loan, and they say, sure, I'll send you through to the new car department. It could have been a lost in translation moment, but the illustration that he did was exactly what I had in mind, and it's just amazing. I'll put it up here again in the video because I can't help but share it. I just think that is so cool. So those are the two protagonists, and they are by the beach, which I thought was funny. His idea of a Korean beach maybe was quite different in terms of just being sort of by the water, instead of the sort of sand leading up, but I think that's just fantastic. I love it. So that's really cool. I've been looking at that and just falling in love again with the characters, and just wanting to make this book really good, and of a quality that's worthy of having concept art commissioned by for Kim Jung Gi. That's just amazing, Master Kim. So I'll sign off. I'm waffling now. Thank you, and I will be back tomorrow, phase 3, working on chapter 2. I'll see you then.